Here in round number 3. And Opulent Palace, excuse me, is where Wheeler will start. We've got Opulent Palaces on both sides of things. And this is kind of a weird, I guess, a Sultai rally deck. It is a weird deck that Tickal is playing this weekend.
And 2 copies of Mogis' Marauder, which is to try to facilitate some kills all in one shot with Rally the Ancestors.
Here is Satyr Wayfinder. It'll turn over an Opulent Palace, a Tassiger, a Hero's Downfall, and another copy of Wayfinder. So Palace will go to the grip there for Wheeler, and we'll go to Tickal. He'll play a copy of Manic Influence. I have to imagine that's an important card for his deck. And here is Jace.
And for those of you who never got to see what Merfolk Looter does against decks that are slow and can't kill Merfolk Looter very easily, about to find out.
Yep, it's real good against those decks. Here's the Wooded Foothills.
I think a lot of the hate on Jace comes from people who just never played with this effect in Standard.
I think there are 2 reasons. One is the reason you just articulated, but 2, when people think of Jace, they think of Jace Bellerin, they think of Jace Architect of Thought, they think of Jace the Mind Sculptor. Jace has such a pedigree for being such an insanely powerful card, and this one isn't as good as that, obviously because few cards are as good as those cards, but that doesn't mean this is a bad card.
Yeah, and 2 mana is less than 3 and 4.
Very true.
You know, that's a factor too.
Single blue in the mana cost as well.
Yep.
See basic forest search up there for Wheeler. Here's 3 mana, it's a Courser of Crewfix. Top card will be revealed here in just a moment for Toby. It's a Whip of Erebos. Tickal untap with an active Jace. And his deck is a little all over the place as far as colors and what it's trying to accomplish. It's a definition of an early season brew. You wonder how much time he's had to test this and get things figured out. He'll start by activating Jace. And discard a copy of Mogis' Marauder. There's another copy of Manic Influence. Looks like he's going to be taking 1 now, down to 18. There's a copy of Gather the Pack. And take a look at a couple of cards here. Satyr Wayfinder will go to the grip. Rest will go to the graveyard. Now there's an Elvish Mystic. Pass the turn back. Gather the pack as you reveal the top 5 cards of your library. You can put a creature card among them into your hand, put the rest in the graveyard. And if you have Spell Mastery, that's 2 or more instant or sorcery cards in your graveyard, reveal up to 2 creatures and get them. So it's kind of like a Commune with the Gods, Grizzly Salvage-esque card that we've seen a lot of.
And obviously a lot of synergy with the deck that's just filling up its graveyard.
Yeah.
Spell Mastery is going to be happening sort of incidentally, because you just are milling over instants and sorceries in your graveyard as you're going about your business. And
so another Courser, an Opulent Palace, so some life gain there for Wheeler. Now here's some attacks. Tickal going to untap. He'll take a draw. We've seen in this particular Standard format, Delve be very powerful, and just people using their graveyard as a resource. Tickal going to discard a card. If there are 5 more cards in his graveyard, that's going to flip. That was very easy to accomplish. So now Jace will flip into the Telepath Unbound. Starts with 5 counters, +1. Up to 1 target creature gets -2/-0 until your next turn. And then the -3, the effect that everyone knows at this point, just a Snapcaster Mage effect. There's Satyr Wayfinder. A lot of moving parts here for Tickal's deck.
yeah. To put it mildly.
Yeah, there's a Death Mist Raptor that goes in the graveyard. Now he's going to minus. He's going to minus to flashback, Gather the Pack. So now he's going to turn over a bunch of cards. None of which will be coming back, it appears. We'll see. Okay, so he separated the 5 cards.
And you may ask, why is Mogis' Marauder in here as the kill? There aren't that many black mana symbols. Well, with Nantuko Husk, in 1 shot, you can give that Intimidate, sack a bunch of stuff that you're getting on the rebuy from Rally, and kill in 1 turn.
This is a brew. This is a brew right here. All right, Toby's going to untap. He'll draw a copy of Tassiger. Sidisi's on top of the deck.
Usually when you're playing Sultai Reanimator, you're thinking to yourself, all right, my deck's a little slow, but assuming I get out of the first couple turns in the clear, the power level of my deck's going to carry the day, and that is not what is going on here.
I don't think that's what's going on here at all. And yeah, he's Tickal's very happy to block here. Looks like Jace is going to bite the dust. It's going to flip back into its creature form, which is something that can come. We might have a huge rally here in just a minute.
Oh, it becomes a creature and then you can rally. Ooh.
Yeah, you see what's going on?
So many synergies. No, I don't see everything that's going on here. There's so many small little parts here. This is great.
So here's Rally Ancestors. And this is going to be for 3. So return each creature card with converted mana cost X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Exile those creatures at the beginning of your next upkeep. Exile Rally the Ancestors. So there are a lot of creatures coming back from the graveyard now, like a lot of creatures. One of them is a Nantuko Husk. There's also black mana symbols, and as we take a look at Mogis' Marauder, that gives creatures haste.
Yes.
I know you know that because of your Suicide Black days, testing mono black aggro.
I never got a Mogis Marauder like this. I mean,
I never had a Nantuko Husk like this. So all these creatures come back. There are triggers and Jaces and Satyr Wayfinders and Mogis Marauder triggers and all of this stuff. And I hope Nick Miller's not busy because he's going to have a deck tech a little bit. So here's a Satyr Wayfinder. Going to get a forest, another one.
Another thing that's really powerful about a Nantuko Husk is you get to avoid the exiling all sort of stuff from Rally. You just get to dump everything back into your graveyard.
Because there's no clause that says if they die, they're exiled instead. Like some cards have that clause, obviously. This is not one of them. And Nantuko Husk is going to get haste. Also, it would get Intimidate, too. So if there are some annoying blockers on the battlefield, Death Mist Raptors of the world. Oh, I like this. I like this a lot. Oh, and creatures with Grim Horror specs draw cards.
Combo.
I'm going to attack you for a lot. And he wants to sacrifice all of his stuff to be able to go again with Rally the next turn in case it doesn't kill him, which Horror specs allows him to do.
Also, you could give your Jace haste with Mogis' Marauder and immediately flip if that's something you're in the market for too.
Okay.
There's a lot going on.
Give your Rally flashback with Jace.
Yeah, bring it all back. We are going to see combos unfold in front of us. We identified, I don't know, 7-ish. Yeah. I'm sure there's more in store for us as we get further into the match.
Matthew Tickal wins game number 1 here over Toby Wheeler. Sultai Rally up a game here over Sultai Reanimator. We're going to go to the sideboard. We're going to start with Toby, which I have in front of me. He's got 2 Self-Inflicted Wound, a Crux of Fate, and a Case of Ice, a Salumgar, the Drifting Death, a Duress, 2 Drowning Sorrows, 2 Bile Blights, 2 Doomway Giants, 2 Disdainful Strokes, and Reclamation Sage. What you're not going to find here, unsurprisingly, is not a lot of graveyard hate.
There's nothing that interacts with the graveyard, and there's not a lot in the way of discard to break up what Matthew is doing either. I think the 2 copies of BioBlight are fine to bring in this matchup, as is the copy of Duress, but there's not a lot to like here on Toby's side of the table.
Well, Matthew's got the brew, so what's in his sideboard?
2 copies of Hero's Downfall, 3 copies of Thoughtseize, 2 copies of Kolaghan's Command, a Stratus Dancer, Reclamation Sage, Den Protector, and Hidden Dragon Slayer. I don't mind the Den Protector for a game that's shaping up to be a little bit longer, and I guess I would not mind Kolaghan's Command if he's worried about Whip of Erebos, but frankly, Matthew's late game seems a lot better than Toby's.
Well, this is going to be interesting because that was a bloodbath. That was a very, very one-sided game. We got to see a little bit of Jace. We got to see Rally Ancestors, all that fun stuff. We'll get to see game number 2 in just a moment, but very quickly, we will talk about the Star City Games YouTube page, which is somewhere if you missed that game for some reason or just joining us, you'll get the opportunity to go back and watch that along with quite a few other things.
Yeah, you can subscribe right now for free at youtube.com/StarCityGames, and you'll get updated whenever new content goes to the website, and new content is going up there all the time. Versus series articles, premium archives, open series archives, and some stuff that's exclusive to the YouTube page, like unboxing. So again, head over to youtube.com/StarCityGames, become a subscriber today, check out the archives, and best of all, it's free.
There's that word again.
Free.
Love that word. Love that sound. Matthew Tickal, number 15 on our Season 3 leaderboard. Someone that people are going to start to become familiar with. I know this much about him, and this deck is certainly an indication of that. He likes to brew. He likes to brew. And if there's no graveyard hate running around, I think of when I think of Rally Ancestor, I think of a lot of people who have tried.
Yes.
To make it work. And they've gone so big with it. They've tried it with a card like Siege Rhino and Grey Merchant, but that's an expensive rally. The rally we saw was 5 mana. That was not expensive.
They're expensive, and there's no guarantee of a kill.
Yeah.
And for the amount of infrastructure you have to put into your deck to make Rallying Ancestors work, I don't think that's acceptable. But Matthew's deck can kill pretty easily on a rally for 3, and it's actually a kill right then and there.
Yeah.
You're not getting back Siege Rhinos and hoping that the triggers are enough to generate lethal and so on. It's just happening, and Jace seems like just a great addition for this deck.
No, I think it's a fantastic addition, and I also like the thing I like about this deck is assuming the mana works out pretty well, and I have to imagine that it works out at least okay.
Top of the list, 4 copies of Mana Confluence.
Yeah, no surprise there. He's really splashing Rally into this deck because it is a Sultai deck that has Rally, but it also has fixing with Satyr Wayfinder, Jace to help find the right mana. Of course, the mana in the format, kind of on the whole, because of Tri-Lands, is pretty good. So I think you can make this work. We just saw it work in the last game.
If you're wondering what the vulnerability of Matthew's deck is, I'm not seeing much game against a linear aggressive strategy.
Yeah.
Decks, especially red decks that can kill Jace easily. His deck's slow, the lands come to play tapped, a lot of them deal damage. He's not even working with things like Drown in Sorrow in the sideboard. He might be willing to punt the matchups like a theoretical Goblins deck or a Soldiers deck. But as you saw there, Toby's draw was fine. But he couldn't kill Jace, and that did way too much.
Oh, Toby's deck did exactly what it's supposed to do. It's a very mid-rangey, slow-ish deck. I want to cast Whip of Erebos. I want to grind out an advantage with Whip of Erebos. Not here, you don't.
And Matthew there, Toby gained life. That was even a tougher combo to execute than it should be in the abstract because Toby was at 26 or 27 the turn that Matthew had to go for it, and was still able to pull it off.
I like what I just saw. That was wonderful.
2 copies of Court of Calling in this deck as well. The only one of is Liliana. But I'm sure there's just enough synergies here. Getting Grim Horror Specs at instant speed can be nice in certain spots. And end of turn Jace, untap, flip it. That's a pretty potent line as well.
Horror Specs has always felt like a card that's a little underplayed to me.
The problem is that, it shows up primarily in black beatdown decks, and even if you draw a card or two, the mid-range decks can still outclass you, and it's a little bit on the slow side. But for a deck like this, obviously there's a bunch of cool synergies going on with that card.
It looks like maybe a little bit of Oracle text is being asked for right now, so I imagine we'll be underway here in game number 2 in just a moment. Taking a look at what Toby is playing this weekend, for you Sultai Reanimator fans out there, I think the obvious card as far as an update is concerned, you have to imagine Languish should be in this deck probably somewhere. It's not in his main deck. He is playing a copy of Priest of the Bloodright, which is a new card, 5 mana at a 2/2, and then it brings along a demon with it that's a 5/5. But also at the same time, this is a deck that Languish is kind of good against because it is a Sidisi Brew Tyrant deck. And Languish is good at killing Sidisi and all the tokens.
Well, all the decks that have Languish in them, you're assuming that Whip of Erebos is going to carry the day. Even if they kill some stuff, that's fine. You have Whip of Erebos, and you just have a lot of powerful 5 and 6 mana threats, and you can overcome Languish that way.
Yeah, I think so. So, it looks like they're resolving a ruling here. So we'll come back to the booth here really quickly, and then once this ruling is resolved, we'll let you guys know exactly what is going to take place. But we are here in Chicago. Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, round number 3 of action. We are watching Matthew Tickal, number 15 on our Season 3 leaderboard, doing battle with his brew. And, now the mind is racing about, okay, potential updates, smoothing out the numbers
I'm still just wrapping my head around everything that's going on with this deck.
Yep.
Because, you look at, okay, we have Rally Ancestors, we have Jace, we have Mogis' Marauder, we have Nantuko Husk. Okay, I get basically what's going on here. And there's clear that there's a lot of smaller synergies that are kind of lost in the shuffle the first time you read the deck list. And so I'm really enjoying the experience of watching him play this deck for the first time because certain things are becoming evident as he goes that I did not notice on first blush just reading the deck list.
Yeah, it's a hard deck to kind of take a look at and see what's going on, but we certainly saw it in game number 1. We'll see if it happens here in game number 2, as it is just a warning there for Toby Wheeler. So we will head back down to the match now and get ready here for game number 2. Still finished shuffling, just revealed a card from his opening hand when he was shuffling, so not sure if he's going to be taking a mulligan or not. We will find out momentarily. It looks like Matthew is happy enough with his hand. And again, game number 2 will be underway here in just a moment.
Yeah, that's what I find so interesting about Matthew's deck list is that really no effort made to shore up the beatdown matchups in the sideboard. I think he's just willing to let it go.
It's a tough decision to do that week 1, I think. Because it's so the narrative for week 1 a lot of the time when a new set comes out, especially when goblins and elves are printed, are you better have those Dragon Sorrows.
Gideon too.
Yeah.
Another card that says, be ready for this.
But no fear. And it looks like Wheeler's going to take a mulligan here.
And part of that might just be a function of, well, how many of these kind of cards would you have to add to your sideboard for the matchup to be palatable? If you need a 9 or 10 card sideboard to beat aggressive strategies consistently, I don't think that's a very good use of your sideboard slots. You're probably better served saying, okay, that's fine. Hopefully I don't play against goblins or soldiers or elves too many times over the course of the tournament, and I can focus on beating the mid-range strategies and the control strategies that this kind of deck is gunning for in the first place. I definitely have had no fear over the years of being willing to kick particular matchups to the curb if the alternative is board 11 cards and hope they all come up in games 2 and 3.
Yeah, I hope I draw them all. Yeah. And game 1 is so bad, too.
Right.
Yeah. We're underway here in game number 2. Opulent Palace, Ansep Citadel. That's how the players began things. Included Delta here from Wheeler. He'll sacrifice that, go down to 19. We've got an island or a swamp on the way. See Dragon Lord of Tarka in hand here for Toby. That one's a little slow. Here's a basic swamp.
And the problem is that you can wipe Matthew's board and he can go, okay, untap, kill you.
Yeah.
With Rally.
Yep. Let's see what Wheeler has here for turn number 2. It's a copy of Sylvan Caryatid. He'll pass the turn back over to Tickal. Tickal will take a draw step. He'll play a forest. Looks like. Maybe Yavmayakos instead. Now here's Satyr Wayfinder. Turn over a couple of cards here. Opulent Palace among them. That'll be the card that goes to hand. The rest are in the graveyard, which is exactly where he wants them. Go back to Toby. Satyr Wayfinder is his draw.
We've been talking a lot, is Kent Ketter playing the best Satyr Wayfinder deck? I don't know. We might have a new contender here.
I think you're right. Courser, top card is a Sidisi.
If you're looking to maximize the power of Satyr Wayfinder, this deck to me seems like the thing to be doing.
Satyr Wayfinder with the draw here for Tickal this turn, so it looks like he's going to cast another one. Take a look at the top 4 cards. See if he's able to find a land there. It appears that he is not able, so he'll just play a land from his hand in Opulent Palace. Pass the turn back. You see he does have Rally the Ancestors in hand, has a single white mana at this point.
And this is probably the deck that cares the least about missing with Satyr Wayfinder of any deck.
Yes. Basic island on top of the deck there for Wheeler. He'll put that in play from Courser. The top card now is Sidisi, and the top card before was Sidisi, so that'll trigger, turn over a couple of cards. Obviously, a creature's going to hit the graveyard. Dragon Lord of Tarka and Satyr Wayfinder as well, so a zombie on the way here for Wheeler. And truth be told, it's a good start, but it's kind of a slow one.
And Sidisi seems to me like an important threat for the matchup because it allows Toby to apply pressure while leaving a black blocker back on defense, which is really important for preventing the Mogus Marauder kill.
Hasty Nantuko Husk.
Yeah.
Yeah, as we saw last game.
And made no mistake, Toby's got to put some pressure on here. Because left uncontested, we saw what happened when Matthew had 5 mana and a couple turns to get stuff in his graveyard. He built an overwhelming kill.
Another Satyr Wayfinder, couple of cards. Sansep Citadel and Plains among the options here. He's trying to build towards a large rally. He'll take Citadel. That'll enter the battlefield tapped, of course. Pass the turn back. He also has a copy of Nantuko Husk in hand. That's what he's able to use to win the first game. That's kind of the combo aspect of his deck. Top card of the deck here for Wheeler is a Llanowar Waste. He'll play that. Of course, we'll gain a life. Wheeler going to go up to 21. Next card is a Disdainful Stroke. Good sideboard card against Rally.
Mm-hmm. So at least some degree of interaction, which Toby didn't have in the first game. And I wonder if Toby feels like Disdainful Stroke is so good in the spot that he's not willing to mill it over.
Well, here's Sidisi. So this gets interesting now. Gonna sacrifice that zombie token for Exploit. Now we got a little tutor action. And one of the few times that we've actually seen both Sidisis on the battlefield at the same time. Different text, different cards, perfectly legal.
The Legend rules have shifted quite a bit over the years.
They have. Top card now, Temple of Malady. Original Sidisi looks like it might want to come in. A couple of cards going to get turned over here. No zombie coming.
I think we're going to see a very quick triple block
I
over
was
here.
thinking the same thing. Polluted Delta on top of the deck from Corsair. And it looks like Tickle's okay with taking the damage. Maybe some more setup required at this point. So he does have Nantuko Husk in hand. It's unclear if he has one in his graveyard right now. Frontier Bivouac the draw.
The concern that I would have in Matthew's spot is just Sidisi is problematic from an offense-defense perspective. It attacks him while generating black blockers on the way back.
Sure.
But Matthew clearly with bigger plans.
Yeah, he does play a Morph for the turn. Pass that turn back. Polluted Delta the draw here for Wheeler. Take a look at the top cards. Copy of Murderous Cut. Things getting interesting here. There's a Delta trigger for the Corsair. Up to 22 goes Wheeler. Now here's a Whip of Erebos. Gonna sacrifice that Polluted Delta, Will Wheeler. He'll stay at the same life total because Corsair's on the battlefield. There's a basic Swamp.
And Matthew just hasn't had the same degree of velocity in his graveyard that he had in game one, where you saw Jason to gather the pact. It was very, very fast for him to get his graveyard going. And he hasn't had quite the same speed here in game two.
He's going to have to do it via blocking, it appears. Whip of Erebos, the top card of the deck. See what's next. There's Bile Blights. Going to target the Morph. Going to unmorph Grim Horospex. That'll bring back Deathmish Raptor.
I was about to wonder if Toby was going to go for the Satyrs there and try to get a good attack in. Thank goodness he did not.
Yep, that would have been many a card for Matthew Tickal. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, draw a card. On top of the deck is a Wooded Foothills now. We'll see how much more setup is required. Okay, there's the blocks.
So that would explain why Matthew didn't go for the triple block last turn. He was trying to set up Grim Horospex.
Yep,
draw a bunch of cards.
Yep. Still a really good turn there for Tickal. Able to kill both Sidisis. Though Wheeler able to gain a lot of life and clear the board. So Tickal will draw a card.
But Toby not able to block this turn. And Matthew with 6 mana does have availability for double white.
Is it time for a rally? I guess that is the question. A couple copies of Nantuko Husk in hand. We'll have to see what Tickal can set up here.
He also has the option here of essentially going for a setup turn by doing something like casting 2 copies of Nantuko Husk, casting a Nantuko Husk and a Jace, and then hoping that the rally next turn allows him to get a kill. If he's short right now, he can set up a little bit and then go for it next turn.
Not underneath a ton of pressure right now either. 13, a pretty high life total, all things considered. Sultai Reanimator deck doesn't hit too hard. Tickal started by playing his Forest for the turn. Gonna play a Husk and a Marauder. pass the turn back. They're going to play a little bit of defense right now. Wooded Foothills is the draw. The Mighty Priest of the Bloodright is the card that Tickal is taking a look at. A card that some feel is going to see some play.
That comment has been made about a lot of cards in Magic Origins.
It's very true. Opulent Palace is the land. Losing 2 life on your upkeep is quite a bit, though. Here's a whip trigger. Dragon Lord Atarka is going to be returned. I think this is exactly what Matthew kind of wants to have happen.
There's still no black blocker in play. I mean, this is a lot of life that Toby's going to be gaining here. I think he's going up to 40 through the attacks here.
We can't forget the Dragon Lord Atarka when it shoots something down, he gains life too.
Yeah.
So
actually quite a bit higher than that. But there's no black blocker, and Matthew is now free to do his thing.
2 mana. Here's the Satyr Wayfinder. Turn over a couple of cards here.
I wonder if that turn, if Toby maybe needed to get back Sidisi to just get some blockers back on defense.
Yeah, to get a zombie token.
Yeah.
Well, Tickal's going to quickly untap. The question is the opponent dead? Because he's got to Rally the Ancestors in hand, and he's casting it. Can he deal 45? It's going to be for 3. And we got a lot of stuff coming back here. Nantuko Husk among them. Horsepex too. Oh boy.
Okay, so let's see how this washes out. There might be some option here for Matthew to sacrifice an Nantuko Husk, draw a card to the Grim Horsepex until he finds a cord, and cord for another piece.
He does have 2 cords in his main deck. Forgot about that.
So he's getting back 3 black mana symbols. I would imagine the black creatures are the ones that will be getting the Intimidate.
Satyr Wayfinder's going to mill some cards now first. Up to X target creatures each gain Intimidate and Haste until end of turn. That's actually pretty important, where X is your devotion to black. Yeah, so Caryatid, Nantuko Husk, and Elvish Mystic were the ones that were chosen, which means those mana creatures, they have haste, so they can generate more mana.
So maybe the goal here is to find another rally through Grim Horospex.
Yep.
Rally, like sack everything to Nantuko Husk, rally again, and then have 45 plus points of damage.
He just played his land for the turn. The question is he able to generate enough white mana to do this? He's going to start by sacrificing the Wayfinder, draw a card. Sacrifice, draw a card. Husk is getting bigger. Sacrifice, draw a card. Things getting mighty interesting now.
And Toby can only sit and watch.
Yep. Not a great feeling. Sacrifice Deathmist Raptor. Maybe. Well, go with, looks like an Elvish Mystic instead, draw a card. Sacrifice an Elvish Mystic, draw a card. Husk up to 5. There's another Rally of the Ancestors. The problem here for Tickal might be is that he's only got access to 1 white mana, and he played Nurburg for the turn. And his opponent, Toby Wheeler, is at 45.
I think it would be trivial for Matthew to be able to do 45 damage this turn if he was able to cast a second rally.
Can he do enough here? all the 2-mana spells that he could bring back. I think that's what he's looking at. 2 and less for Rally.
And that's why you saw Matthew sacrifice the 1 and 2 mana creatures first.
Yep.
Get the most information about the cards he know he can return, assuming that he can cast a Rally for 2.
Looks like at this point, Husk is a 12-12.
Well, 14-14, because it's base 2-2.
Yep.
And then there's the 6 pumps.
Thank you. There's Jace. Two more mana, maybe. A lot to think about here.
Yep.
Nothing easy about this. Here come the beatdowns. Can't block because Mogus Marauder gave Nantuko Husk Intimidate, so it's got text that says it can only be blocked by black and artifact creatures. So I sacrifice a couple of dummies here. Draw 3 more cards. Court of Calling has been found now. So a bunch of damage going to be dealt.
An even 20, it looks like.
Yep. And now Rally's text. Did I imagine some of those things? I guess we'll take a look at Rally the Ancestors on screen. And it says, exile those creatures at the beginning of your next upkeep. Okay. It's weird. That's different text.
Yeah.
Kind of weird. At the beginning of his next upkeep. So that means he has the ability to block all this stuff here and then sacrifice everything and then try to go again.
But again, the question is, you know, can Toby leave enough black blockers on defense to prevent the Mogus' Marauder Nantuko Husk kill?
It seems maybe.
And can Toby identify that that's the thing that he needs to be doing right
yeah,
here?
that's
another
the tough
question.
part, yeah.
Because like I said, last turn in Toby's spot, that's what I think that I would have done. Is just get back Sidisi, try to have some zombies, and then go for Dragonlord Tarka the following turn.
Llanowar Waste is the land. That'll trigger Courser. Wheel is going to go to 26.
Because if Toby just goes, I'll cast Dragonlord Tarka this turn, I'm almost positive he's dead.
I'm almost positive he's dead too. And that's exactly what
This just doesn't do very much to break up what Matthew's up to.
Yeah. So it looks like Jace is going to be targeted. It's going to sacrifice that, draw a card. Now Horror Specs looks like it's going to bite the dust too. Doesn't get to draw a card there because Horror Specs has another creature that's not itself. Matthew's going to sacrifice these creatures.
Remember, because of the rally trigger, he's just putting everything in his graveyard.
Yep. Float some mana, sacrifice here, sacrifice there. Rally's an instant. He knows how his deck works. With Rally trigger on the stack, because he left Caryatid around till his upkeep, because that's when Rally triggers. So with that on the stack, add mana from Caryatid, sacrifice it to Husk, then sacrifice Husk to itself so it's in the graveyard. Let that Rally trigger resolve. that would exile stuff, but it can't do that. Then cast the other rally because rally is an instant.
Another intriguing thing about all this is, you know, R&D has gotten away from cards sacrificing themselves. They used to do it a lot, but now it's not the most intuitive gameplay. It doesn't make sense to a lot of players. And the reprint of Nantuko Husk, I think that Matthew may have just killed himself by milling himself over before he drew and needed to draw a card first.
Oh no.
So we'll get to game 3 in a moment.
Okay. Yes, we will. Yes, we will.
He needed to draw a card first because he has all the mill triggers from Wayfinder and such, re-entering the battlefield.
Sure.
So he actually needs to draw a card and then do it.
Sure.
So we'll actually be going to game 3 in a moment here.
Okay.
Part of the combo of this deck involves Nantuko Husk being able to sacrifice itself so you can get it right back with Rally and continue going, which we should have saw in that moment. If Matthew had drawn a card and did the combo, he would have been fine.
Yep.
But it's just interesting to see a deck where they don't really design cards like this anymore. They probably reprinted this for simplicity's sake. We've seen the card before, and they have the art on hand. Like whatever, there's reasons just to reprint the old text box. And the fact that it can sacrifice to itself to put itself back in the graveyard does matter for this combo deck functioning the right way.
Oh, quite a bit. Quite a bit. Game number 3 here, after a misstep there from Tickal, will take place in just a moment. I don't know where this deck would line up in the next level library and next level deck building. Would that be combo? Probably. It's kind of aggro combo.
I would say aggressive combo.
Okay. Well, Patrick Chapin has written 2 books about Magic, as you guys probably know, Next Level Magic and Next Level Deck Building. Two awesome books.
Yeah, for players of all ability levels, Next Level Magic focuses on playing the game, Next Level Deck Building with a focus on deck building. Available on paperback and ebook from Magic Hall of Famer and Pro Tour champion Patrick Chapin. They're available right now at starcgames.com/nextlevel.
So what happened there on the upkeep is he returned everything, but because Seder Wayfinders were in the graveyard, 3 triggers, maybe a 4th one, honestly, he would have milled over at least 12 cards, which his deck did not have 12 cards left.
So
there's your
rushed
problem.
a little bit there. Didn't need the mana from the Caryatid. It got a little fancy.
Sure.
That's the type of mistake you make it once. Then you know. Don't rally in the upkeep, or at least count your deck first.
You live and you learn.
You do.
Well, that just means we get to see a 3rd game of this crazy brew.
No harm done.
I'm fine with that.
No harm.
I don't mind that one bit.
And that was a game where Matthew's engine was a little anemic, at least compared to the first game. In the first game he had Jace unchecked, and that on top of Gather the Pack really got his graveyard humming very, very quickly.
There's a lot going on with this brew.
I think Matthew probably having a laugh at his own expense there.
I would be doing the same.
Realizing he killed himself.
Bit of a goof. Made a mistake, but that's all right. Just goofed up. Now we try again this game. He's in a good matchup.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Can't ask for much better than this matchup.
There's really no great way for Toby to interact with him.
Sidisi Brood Tyrant seems like his most important card. Like I said, a steady stream of black blockers and pressure seems important.
We're going to start things off with the Sansep Citadel. We'll go back to Wheeler. Wheeler will draw. An Opulent Palace, pass the turn back. Tickal with Mana Confluence and a Sylvan Caryatid. Color's not going to be a problem this game. The other question you have to ask yourself about this Sultai Rally deck is can it play a normalized game?
I think it's very hard for this deck to do. It's got some beatdowns, but it's not a beatdown deck.
Here's a Seder Wayfinder. Both forms of Sidisi along with a Swamp and a Bile Blight. Swamp will go to the grip, the rest will go to the graveyard. We head over to Tickal. Tickal will play a Jace. There's a Frontier Bivouac, pass the turn back. Jace was very impressive in the first game.
And that was really important. You look at Matthew's hand, it's Nantuko Husks, Rallies, and Den Protectors. That's a hand that really needs something going to get things in the graveyard. Either to play an attrition game with Den Protector or to set up Rally. And so Jace, a perfect draw in that spot.
A Swamp and the beatdowns. Jace is going to block. We don't get to see that a lot.
Love it.
Now here's Thoughtseize.
A fearless block.
Nantuko Husk, Rally the Ancestors, 2 Den Protectors. You can take Rally, but Den Protector's here to bring it back. Wheeler can just only pass the turn back. And Jace is going to activate. Time to loot. Draw and discard. Elvish Mystic was the draw. Discard and Tickal Husk. That's where that card wants to be. Here's 4 mana. There's a Liliana and an Elvish Mystic.
Ooh, exciting.
All right, another new one.
Again, a one of here for Matthew's rally deck.
Yep. There's probably some real nonsense you can do with that when you rally the ancestors that back.
Yeah, yep.
Sacrifice something, flip it, activate some ability on it. Yeah, it can go really nuts. Here's SCGCHI. Courser is a creature.
Can you basically use it in one turn to rebuy a Mogis' Marauder to spread out more Intimidate triggers and haste triggers?
Yeah, because it's going to flip into a Planeswalker
Right,
and then minus to
gets it
return
right back.
something. Yeah. Here's Jace.
I don't want to presume too much about exactly all the things that Liliana can do in this deck, because I've been surprised at every turn thus far.
It can do quite a bit, I imagine. Den Protector's going to be morphed with the ability to bring back Rally soon enough. It's all set up right now, and Tickal's underneath basically no pressure. Here's 5 mana. That is a Torrent Elemental.
Torrent Elemental could be important here for Toby, because attacking is just too hard to do in the face of how good Matthew is at blocking, and the Liliana makes things complicated as well. Torrent Elemental allows him to just start attacking, which is what he needs to do.
Den Protector is going to be unmegamorphed. It'll get a counter. It's going to return Rally the Ancestors. Time to draw. Another Rally. Perhaps a Jace activation. Draw and discard. Looks like I think he found Grim Horror Specs.
Keep in mind, Matthew's in a spot here where he's going to get killed over the course of 2 turns, and his deck does not have a lot of ways to interact with Toby's side of the table. So he's got whatever he's setting up towards, he's got to get it done soon.
There is not a lot more time to mess around. But there are so many moving parts going on here that it seems like there's a lot that he can accomplish. Now, I know he has probably the ability to discard Horror Specs, rally back some stuff, sacrifice his entire board, draw a bunch of cards. That'll flip Liliana, activate Liliana, bring something back. I feel like there's an avenue here, especially because he has 2 rallies in hand. He'll pass the turn back.
Keep it in mind, he can do this all at instant speed.
Yep.
Rallies an instant, and he has a second copy. So he can have 1 rally for mid-combat chicanery this turn, and then a second rally for a potential kill next turn.
Here come the attackers. Everything's coming in. You'll get a Torrent Elemental trigger and a SCGCHI trigger. So, there'll be some mana floated. And the rest of the stuff will tap. So now he gets to resolve the SCGCHI trigger. And now we're probably going to get our rally. Okay, so take 1. Here's Rally 4-3. That'll bring back Horror Specs. And a couple other things. Looks like a Reclamation Sage. And an Tickal Husk. So now let's see what's next. It's a pretty good value turn. Sacrifice Den Protector, get to draw a card. Also get to flip Liliana. And get a 2/2 from that. All right. Picked up another copy of Jace.
And assuming that Matthew can hit a land drop next turn, he has enough mana to both rally for 3 and also cast a Gather the Pack. So we can find Gather the Pack, put a lot more stuff in the graveyard. Satyr Wayfinder also, 7 mana essentially is a flashpoint for him in this spot.
What's interesting about this is that he does. We'll see how much he feels he needs to speed up. You know, because he's at 13, and he's cleaned up some of the board now. There's a Torrent Elemental working away a little bit, and it looks like something else is going to be added to the table here that might force him to speed up. Yeah, there's another SCGCHI. We'll see if it brings along a zombie. An island, a polluted delta, and a wooded foothill, so no. Now here's 2 mana. Let's see what follows here. Carry added. So you might have some time.
He's not dead next turn.
Nope.
But the issue is that Torrent Elemental puts him under some specific pressure. Because if he could just chump block, he would have multiple turns to set up however he wanted to. But because that's off the table, he's just looking at his life total against how much damage is Toby dealing a turn. And that defines how fast he has to move.
Here's a Jace trigger on here's a Jace activation on upkeep. Sacrifice. He does need to discard a card. Yeah, he's got to slow down. He's got to discard a card first before sacrificing that. He does realize that. You saw him draw a discard and then get a card from Horrorspec. Sacrifice that, sacrifice that. None of this other stuff leaves because of Rally, because it was already on the battlefield. You know, the Liliana that's flipped, a zombie token, an Elvish Mystic, and a Carry added, along with some lands on the battlefield.
Without Mogus's Marauder, he doesn't have a haste kill.
Yeah, that's the problem. And he only plays 2 Mogus's Marauders, which, if you think about it, it makes sense because you can't play a ton of them. Now, Liliana's going to make both players discard. And that's to Tickal's advantage here. That's something he wants to be doing. Now here's Satyr Wayfinder. Maybe this gets him closer. Mogus Marauder's in the graveyard now.
Mogus's Marauder, a huge card for him to flip over here.
Yep. Hasn't played a land yet, I don't believe. He'll play a Yavimaya Coast. Can't rally right now for the kill because there are 2 black blockers on defense. No, he's moving his graveyard around. He might be thinking about rallying.
I mean, he still gets, you know, even if he's rallying for not lethal, he may force enough blocks on Toby's side with the black creatures that the following turn he gets an option to rally again. And because of the Grim Horror specs, he's going to be drawing a whole bunch of cards every time he goes through this permutation. Another issue with Matthew's deck here is this is a hard deck to play. There's obviously a lot going on.
Oh, you think so?
And I would be worried about potential slow play penalties over the course of this tournament. Matthew's had some really tough turns that have taken a while to resolve, and you can only have so many of those over the course of a tournament.
All this stuff has come back.
Again, I don't blame him for the turns being hard because look at everything that's happening.
Yeah. Here's Rally.
I was playing this deck on Magic Online. My laptop would have just frozen.
Yeah, it would be broken. Would have went up in smoke. So we know there's going to be a couple of triggers here. Satyr Wayfinder is 1. Mogus Marauder is another. What's interesting here is what Tickal wants to target with Mogus's Marauder, since there are some black mana symbols on the battlefield. It looks like he's targeted Nantuko Husk, Jace, and Grim Horospex. Yeah, there's so many triggers and so many things going on. You can see he's confusing himself a little bit on what he's supposed to do.
Well, I think he wants to get a 5th card in the graveyard here so he can flip over Jace.
Okay.
That's a priority for the turn.
Okay.
And gas up as much as possible with expendable creatures through Grim Horospex and Nantuko Husk, though there is no rush to do that right now.
True. A bunch of mana has been, a bunch of creatures have been tapped. They're attacking. Okay. Here are some blockers. The Husk have to be blocked.
Yes.
Yep.
Husk is lethal. Got to block that. And if any Nantuko Husk here goes unblocked,
He's probably just dead.
yeah. He certainly has, you know, however many creatures he needs. 8, I suppose.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. Confusing, yes. Explosive, certainly. Matthew Tickal is going to win this game and match here over Toby Wheeler, 2-1. Sultai Rally will take care of Sultai Reanimator. Tickal is able to finally find the Mogus' Marauder to give his Husk haste and be able to get the job done.
And I wonder, I assume that the Mogus Marauder was just on the Nantuko Husk the last turn.
Yeah, it was targeting, that's why those Husks were able to attack that turn.
So you have 3 Husks. There's only 2 black blockers back on defense.
Correct.
And there you go. So Matthew now 3-0, and I would